Okay, let's unpack this. We all remember the headlines, right? That voice. Today, we're doing a deep dive into Amy Winehouse's story. We're going beyond the surface, looking closely at a transcript from Real Stories on YouTube. It's called The Price of Fame. The tragic story of Amy Winehouse.
Yeah, and what's great about digging into this transcript is it really lets us trace the path of such a unique talent, try to understand the real details of her journey.
Absolutely. So for you listening, our mission here is to kind of move past the easy tabloid stuff. We want to get a richer sense of Amy's life, explore her musical roots, the absolute whirlwind of fame that came later, and of course the personal battles she fought. Really appreciate her lasting impact.
And it's important, I think, to look at the bigger picture, too. Like, what happens when this incredible artistic gift meets the intense pressure of fame and very deep personal struggles?
Right, exactly. So we'll be touching on the key parts. Her early influences, musically speaking, that amazing rise with Frank and then, wow, back to black. Her really complex, often difficult relationship with Blake Fielder Civil. Her battles with addiction, which were so public, the media frenzy, and how it all ended so tragically. So let's start at the beginning. Where did her music really come from?
Well, it starts in Camden Town, London. That's where Amy grew up with her parents, Mitchell and Janice Winehouse. And one of the first things that jumps out is just how musical her home environment was.
Yeah, the transcript mentions Frank Sinatra, lots of 1950s jazz.
Yeah.
Big influences from when she was really young.
Yeah.
But it wasn't just like background music, was it? It sounds like the family was actively involved.
Exactly. Apparently, they didn't have a TV for a while, so entertainment was often music, even ballroom dancing. It paints this picture of them, participating.
And little Amy was right in the middle of it.
Seems so. Performing for the family, singing, even taking a little bow afterwards. It suggests she had this performing instinct, like right from the start.
And it stuck with her. By 14, she'd learned guitar and was already writing songs. And interestingly, alongside the jazz thing, she got really into hip-hop, specifically Salt and Pepper.
Yeah, that mix is so characteristic of her later sound, isn't it? Jazz, soul, but with that kind of modern edge. The transcript points out she saw how vital music was for her pretty early on, maybe around 13. It just connected with her.
Which sort of brings us to Frank, her debut album. She was only 20 when it came out.
Yeah, just 20. And the transcript describes it as, raw, really honest. It immediately got people's attention, established her as a serious talent pretty much overnight.
It got great reviews, won awards, became a hit. But it also says she was a perfectionist.
Yeah.
And maybe wasn't totally happy with the final album.
That's right. She felt the record company hadn't quite done it justice, maybe smoothed the edges too much for her liking, which hits with the title, Frank, right?
Yeah, the double meaning. Her honesty, but also the Sinatra nod.
Exactly. And her songwriting right from the beginning was super personal, drawn from her own life, often with this sharp sense of humor too, which sometimes gets lost later on.
That honesty definitely resonated. The transcript also mentions how some early lyrics, even music videos, seem to touch on this theme of looking for a sort of strong male figure. That vulnerability was there early.
It was. And it's quite touching, actually, reading about her first brush with fame. At the Brit Awards in 2003, before Frank even dropped, she was described as this chubby-faced, young, energetic fool of life, just loving it all.
And saying fame wouldn't change her, right? That she just wanted to make real music.
Yeah, that early sort of innocence, that focus. It's quite a contrast to what came later. The pressure hadn't fully hit yet,
Then things seem to shift.
Mm-hmm.
A relationship starts that becomes, well, hugely significant. Blake Fielder Civil. He was a music video production assistant.
That's him. Met him at a bar. And the transcript doesn't mince words, calls it one of the most stormy relationships you could imagine.
Stormy is one word for it. It says they were complete and utter soulmates who adored each other, but also that they really destroyed each other. It was intense language.
Very intense. He's painted as the love of Amy's life, but simultaneously this really destructive force. The transcript is quite direct about him introducing her to hard drugs, specifically heroin, in a hotel in East London.
And her friends and family mostly blamed him for that introduction.
Largely, yes, according to the source. But, addiction is complex. There's personal responsibility involved too, of course. But the transcript does stress Amy had a very addictive personality and that their relationship was incredibly codependent. They couldn't seem to be with or without each other.
Right. Even Blake's own mother apparently acknowledged his role in her decline, at least partly.
It brings up that tricky aspect of addiction, how behaviors can sometimes transfer, the underlying brain chemistry involved.
Yeah.
And their dynamic just seemed to amplify everything. The detail about her carving "I love Blake" on her stomach, it's
Okay.
quite shocking. It really shows the depth of that connection, maybe the desperation too.
So, after this really turbulent time, there's a shift, a transformation leading up to Back to Black.
Yeah.
The beehive, the eyeliner, that whole iconic look.
Exactly. A very deliberate image change. Inspired by 60s girl groups like the Ronettes, it wasn't just fashion, it was tied to the music she was making.
Kind of cementing her unique style. Even if it wasn't trendy at the time, she made it work, made it iconic.
She absolutely did. And this is when she starts working closely with Mark Ronson.
Right. And he was impressed by her straight away, her honesty, her strong will.
Yeah, he talks about this absolute dynamite electricity when they work together. He helped shape that Back to Black sound, polishing it, but keeping that raw emotion intact.
And Back to Black, released October 2006. Just massive. Her biggest album by far, still seen as a landmark record.
Definitely. And the source material for it was, again, intensely personal. It came directly out of her relationship with Blake, specifically their first big breakup. All that passion and heartbreak went straight into the songs.
You can hear it. The transcript says it was like she put her blood and guts on the table, that the songs were dragged out of her soul.
That vulnerability combined with that unique sound jazz, soul, R&B, that's what made it connect so powerfully, I think.
But that same relationship with Blake, it just kept fueling the fire, didn't it? The self-destructive side. She's writing amazing songs from the heartbreak, but drugs and alcohol are starting to really affect her performances.
Yeah, it's that difficult pattern again. Personal chaos fueling creativity, but also worsening her struggles. When her management pushed for rehab, she pushed back hard, and that led directly to writing the song Rehab.
Which is just such a massive irony, isn't it?
Totally.
Rehab, written super quickly about refusing help, becomes this huge global hit. But the transcript makes it clear, she really did need that help.
Desperately. And as her fame exploded, so did the media scrutiny. Just relentless. And that seemed to make her pull away from people, even friends like Mark Ronson.
Oh, yeah, the falling out over the Bond theme comments he made. She went after him on Twitter.
Yeah, it shows that defensiveness setting in.
Mm.
And the transcript mentions that difficult part of addiction, pushing away the people trying to help, sometimes even resenting them for it.
And despite all that turmoil, she and Blake got married. Secretly. In Miami in 2007.
They did. It just highlights how tangled up they were, that codependency. But the problems just kept mounting. Arrested in Norway for pot, then Blake gets jailed for assault and trying to bribe someone.
And then that video surfaced in 2008, the one showing her smoking crack cocaine. That felt like a real low point publicly.
It was a huge blow to her image and career. She did go into rehab after that, but the transcript reveals another layer of her pain. Self-harm, finding cuts on her arms, blood on her ballet shoes. It's deeply unsettling.
Just awful. It really points to the immense emotional distress she must have been in beneath everything else.
Absolutely. Addiction so often goes hand in hand with other mental health struggles. Self-harm can be a way of coping, however destructive. It says a lot that the record company basically backed off pushing for a third album then. They could see how fragile she was.
And physically, she was struggling too. Losing a lot of weight, bulimia, and then getting diagnosed with emphysema in her mid-20s.
Yeah, early stage emphysema, just devastating. And there's that chilling quote from Amy herself saying alcohol was actually worse than heroin for her.
Wow. Her dad, Mitch, was talking publicly about his concerns, wasn't he? Hoping she'd pull through.
He was. You get the sense of a family just grappling with this impossible situation, trying to offer support while watching her struggle.
Moving towards the end, there was that trip to St. Lucia in 2009. She came back looking better, healthier.
There was a glimmer of hope, yeah. She seemed happier for a bit. But the transcript suggests that while she might have tackled the drug use to some extent, the heavy drinking continued, and then the divorce from Blake happened amidst more fights and legal issues.
So, more attempts at rehab followed. May 2011, specifically for alcohol.
Yes, but she checked out relatively quickly. And then came that disastrous comeback attempt in Belgrade, Serbia.
Oh, that was so hard to watch. Even the clips. The transcript describes her being too drunk to sing, getting booed off stage. Just heartbreaking.
Truly, the whole tour was canceled after that, yet even then, the transcript notes she was making calls to friends, to musicians, still talking about the future, wanting to get better, make music again.
Her dad just wanted her to be okay, didn't he? Find happiness, maybe have a family someday, if she could beat the addiction. But his biggest fear
Was her death, which tragically happened, July 23rd, 2011, found by her bodyguard, Andrew Morris.
cause of death, alcohol poison. So incredibly sad. The transcript mentions she still loved Blake, was heartbroken he'd had a child with someone else. She
Mhm.
wanted that life, potentially. Wife, mother.
And she became part of that awful Club 27, another incredibly talented musician, lost at just 27 years old.
Her funeral. Mark Ronson was there, Kelly Osbourne, family, close friends. Such a loss.
It really was. And in the immediate aftermath, as you'd expect, the media went into overdrive looking for someone to blame. Blake Fielder Civil was often pointed at.
Understandably, perhaps, given his role in introducing her to hard drugs. But the transcript suggests a more nuanced view, right?
Ah,
Acknowledging his influence, but also stressing that addiction is ultimately personal.
exactly. It also raises questions, quite rightly, about the care she was receiving. She was technically an outpatient of a rehab clinic when she died. Could more have been done? It's impossible to know, but it makes you think about support systems.
Definitely. But her legacy. I mean, despite only 2 major albums, she's remembered as a true legend, isn't she?
Yeah.
A genius songwriter and singer.
Absolutely. That voice, that style, it completely changed things. The transcript mentions her paving the way for artists like Adele, bringing the focus back to real vocal talent, raw authenticity. She broke a mold.
And her family set up the Amy Winehouse Foundation.
Yeah, doing important work around drug and alcohol misuse prevention for young people. It's a powerful way to honor her memory, trying to stop others going through the same thing.
There's a quote from her in the transcript about never wanting to be mediocre, having bucket loads of soul, that really captures her spirit, I think.
It does. And Mark Ronson talks about how grateful he was to work with her, how unique she was, that ability she had to take her own pain, her struggles, and turn them into these incredible, cathartic songs. It was extraordinary.
Yeah, finding energy in the process, even as it maybe consumed her.
It's a complex picture. This deep dive through the transcript really leaves you with that profound sense of loss. An amazing talent silenced way too soon, who lived through so much under such intense public scrutiny.
So wrapping this up, we've journeyed from Amy Winehouse's musical beginnings, through that explosive fame, the destructive forces of addiction in a complicated relationship, the media storm, and ultimately the tragic end of a truly unique artist.
And hopefully, for you listening, looking at her story through the lens of this transcript provides maybe a bit more context, a deeper understanding of the factors behind her incredible music and her very public struggles. It's about the pressures, the talent, the addiction. It's all tangled together.
Definitely. And maybe a final thought to leave you with. Considering her immense talent and all the challenges she faced, you can't help but wonder, what might her music have become if things had been different? And maybe, what responsibility do we all have collectively to support artists dealing with these kinds of intense pressures? It's certainly something to think about, looking beyond the headlines to the person behind that unforgettable voice.